Okay, so welcome to session 10. I'm sorry, strike that. Yes, it is session 10, module 9 of executive execution. And today we're looking at, let me share my screen with you, and looking at, I think, one of the most important aspects of executive execution, which is running the business. So here's our schedule for today. Running the business. Next week, we're solving problems. Next week is our wrap-up week. Yay. Okay, E9, running the business. Enhancing business acumen, increasing general knowledge of business principles, gaining an MBA or other advanced degree, developing a plan for online education, designing a strategy to better understand the workings of the business, and gaining mentors in the industry to improve business acumen. And that'll be where we'll spend our most time today, is in number 6. So without further ado, reflecting on Clint's story. What should he have done differently? What should Clint have done differently?
Focused in his wheelhouse.
Yeah. Good. What else? What should he have done differently?
I didn't hear what, Roger, what did you say?
No, that was Oren's. He should have focused on his wheelhouse.
Oh, okay. I thought you said something too.
Yeah, no, I mean, he wanted to be COO, but never really, had established himself, I guess,
Right.
in that field of operations.
Right.
So while he was able to, attain VP, he never quite made the C-suite.
Mm-hmm. And it was a lifelong career of his, goal of his,
Yeah.
to move his career to the C-suite. So let me ask you a different question, and agree or disagree with this. We're in the age of specialization. If Clint would have specialized, he would have done better. Agree or disagree?
Agree, based on his goal, yes.
Mm-hmm. So just thinking about that, Roger, do you think so? Are we in the age of specialization?
Well, yes, we are. And we see that everywhere. So my customers are physicians, and we see a huge degree of specialization in the medical field, and that applies everywhere. So I agree with that statement. For me, having been in the military before I came into corporate America, I had to make a pretty drastic career change at year 9 after graduating from college. And at the time I was in aviation, and I thought, well, I'll make this career change. Maybe I should stay in aviation.
Right.
And I know a lot of my colleagues that got out of the Navy did stay in aviation. A lot of them were pilots, so they just flew for the airline. Some of them were not, and they still went into operations or other things along those lines. And I made a drastic change. But so now that I'm on this side of it, I've been in sales and I've been in marketing, and I feel like they're relatively closely aligned. And I've learned a lot about the other in doing those jobs. So that's helped me. But as I look forward to a possible role down the road as a GM, I know I'm lacking in areas like, for me, R&D, operations, and other areas of our business.
Sure.
So if you want to become a GM, I'm not sure how you can do that without having a broad spectrum of experience and going a little wider than deeper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you very well may need to. Certainly, I think having a relationship with someone in your organization that is going to take a chance on you is the surest way of getting a GM role, right? So I think from your network, that's the fast way, right? The slower way is to specialize in each of those competencies or each of those functional areas? John, you've been a sales executive your whole career, right?
Well, I had stints in various roles. So I was in sales primarily, but I was a VP of marketing, VP of customer service, VP of sales and marketing. So,
Okay, so sales and marketing.
yeah.
Okay. Oren, what were your functional areas? You were in engineering, right?
Yes, I was in engineering, and I left that and went into a COO role. It was fine. I think doing it remotely was the hard part. And I decided it wasn't my life passion. It was good. I'd probably do it again. But I'd have to make sure that the group was focused. They were aligned with my goals also. So.
Okay. So what do you think about this statement here? Let me share my screen again. What do you think about we're in the age of specialization? Oren, do you agree or disagree?
Agree 100%.
So how does that impact your career planning?
It's made me refocus and know that I have to go hone up skills around that core.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Roger, I think I see the GM role is very, very hard to get unless you have P&L management. So it's almost like a catch-22. What they're looking for in a GM is somebody who knows how to run a P&L. The second hardest role I see is chief operating officer. So that's difficult. And a lot of guys kind of end up there by default because they've jumped around to a couple of different areas. Oren, how did you get to be COO?
I was actually pulled into a startup, and I had worked with the founder in a previous startup and helped fund them. And they basically saw me working with suppliers, working internally, working with them, and really liked what they saw. So I got pulled.
Got it. So that would lead to the next question. So react to this career advice, which is something I've said thousands of times over the last 30 years. Steady path, same direction. What do you think about that? Steady path, same direction. John, you embrace that pretty much, right?
Yeah, I do. But I did branch out and I went into marketing and customer service. So, but I think it's more about consistency and having a direction, having a plan, and staying with the plan. That to me is what matters most, is consistency with staying on that path.
Mm-hmm. So I would agree. It's developing that plan and then staying on the path.
Yeah.
So this section of this ebook is talking about running the business, overall running the business, and talking about business acumen. What kind of business acumen do you need to develop? Or what are the different kinds of business development, business acumen that you could develop?
Yeah, I think most of it's going to be around your strategy and what actions you have to take in order to achieve that strategy.
Okay. Someone else?
Well, I've been, Daniel, to your credit, been focusing a lot on coaching as a leader of salespeople and a sales team, realizing there's a lot of benefit to that. It keeps me from micromanaging. the individuals, forces me to coach them and then have them emulate that behavior and then coach their direct reports. So, I think there's a lot to coaching as I'm learning, more than meets the eye, I suppose, one way to put it.
Yeah, sure.
Daniel, can I interrupt real quick? Mitchell Craddock sent a text saying that he hasn't been promoted to a panelist.
Ah, okay. Well, there's a reason for that. He was late. Okay, Mitchell. Sorry about that, brother. He's coming in. Ooh, the green tunnel.
Oof. That
Dude.
Caterpillar rating.
How do you like that?
Psychedelic. You give Latin a new meaning.
Oh, yeah?
And you're Irish, right?
I am Irish.
Yeah.
You like that one better?
Yeah. Okay, Mitchell, were you listening in?
I was, and I was not even late, Daniel. I was at 2:04.
Oh, I'm so sorry. My fault. I didn't see you.
Right.
So Daniel, I'd like to comment on this because as I just reread your text your content, when I look back at my career, where I see where I made a mistake is I was more intentional earlier in my career. I
Right.
said no to a lot of opportunities. And then at one point I started saying yes, and I never stopped saying yes.
Mm.
And had I been more intentional about turning some things down, I would have had more direction in my career.
Because you never said yes?
Because
I started out saying no. But once I said yes, I never stopped saying yes. And I should have stopped saying yes.
You should have. I see.
Yes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Totally. And guys, that's what I see is one of the most common problems with failed executive careers. Failed meaning that you did not achieve what you wanted to achieve. And the things you say no to are oftentimes more important than the things that you say yes to. One of my colleagues had this saying that the company always has a plan for you. Like we could say, Roger Abbott always will have a plan for you. Right? They'll always be planning your career for you.
I think so.
But it's not what's best for your career, it's what's best for Abbott, right?
Right.
Mm.
Now, there's nothing wrong with that because that is their responsibility to act in the best interest of the company and try to put you into the box that they feel like you could do the most good for Abbott in, right? And Mitchell, same thing with you for Q2, right?
Right.
They're going to put you into the place where you can do the most good.
Correct.
Nothing wrong with that. From their perspective. From your vantage point, though, you have to be able to say no. You have to be able to say, I really don't want to take that role because that's a diversion. That's gonna put me into an overhead function. And I really, from my career, this is Roger talking, for my career, I really need P&L responsibility. And I don't want to run just a sales function and just be responsible for the revenue because I really need P&L responsibility. So Roger may end up taking a opportunity running a $10 million P&L rather than running a $50 million sales organization. And it might be counterintuitive because like, wow, you get more money and you're going to run this big organization. That must be better for your career. Not necessarily. If Roger wants to become a general manager, the one thing that everyone's going to be looking at and asking about as he's interviewing for roles is, well, Roger, how much P&L experience do you have? How many years of P&L management do you have, and how big was your P&L? Those are the key questions right there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the size and the head count. It's, do you have P&L? So knowing where you want to go, to John's point, I think is really critical. That was a very good point, John. And then being willing to say no, right?
Yeah.
Being willing to say no.
But you can't say no unless you know where you want to go.
Yeah, exactly. So to enhance your business acumen, we had a couple of things in the ebook. Read books and articles. I think that one thing that I do more than anything else as a coach is I just get my clients reading in the right direction. And let me say just a word about reading, that we tend to read on subjects we're interested in, and we tend not to read on subjects we're not interested in, like duh. For example, my weakest area is accounting and finance, and specifically FP&A, financial planning and analysis. I never would think ever in a million years about reading something on FP&A. I have less than zero interest on FP&A. However, it's my weakest area, and really, if I was going to be a well-rounded CEO, that's exactly the area that I would be studying, right? So reading books and articles, listening to podcasts, et cetera, in the areas where you need to grow, not your needs, your level of interest. Attending conferences, seminars, webinars for more intensive training, networking, associations, and familiarizing yourself with, for example, in this case, financial workings of the company, or learn more about your customers, clients, what they look for, value, and respect. What are some other ways you can enhance your business acumen? Can you think of anything? How do you enhance your business acumen?
Abbott has a program they call Time Gigs, where basically you kind of volunteer to work alongside someone in a different function, learn their job, maybe help on a project.
Mm-hmm. There's a huge value in working in a large organization. A number of real positive things. That's one of them. That a large organization has the luxury of being able to do that for you. Yep. Okay, good. Anything else? Can you think of anything else? How do you enhance business acumen?
I'd say networking outside your own organization in a parallel entity or entities.
Sure. Yeah, networking is good. Good. You can think of a few more. Second section, increasing your general knowledge of business principles. So agree or disagree, knowledge is power.
Agree.
Agree? Reflect on this. There are universal business principles. I'm coining them UBPs. You know, consultants, we have to come up with acronyms or acrostics for everything. UBPs, defined as universally applicable to all business situations in any environment. What are some examples that either prove or disprove this theory? What's like a universal business principle? It's like always true everywhere you apply it.
That people are our most valuable resource.
It's pretty much true everywhere, right? There's nowhere that you can see that that's not true. What's another one?
Efficiency and production or execution is key.
Sure. So there are universal principles, right? So increasing your general knowledge of business principles is important. What's some of the best ways that you can assimilate greater knowledge of business principles?
reading, webinars, podcasts.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The next slide, I'm gonna. Can you see this? Gain an MBA or other advanced degree.
Yeah.
I didn't actually put anything there. I had a placeholder for this, but I just wanted to ask you guys: is this really something important to do today? Do you think that gaining an MBA or an advanced degree is important?
I don't know that I
Yes.
believe that it's as important as maybe it once was because of specialization.
So because of specialization, it is not as important as it once was. Agree or disagree? What do y'all think?
I agree with Mitchell, but I'd still say that it carries a lot of weight.
Okay, good. So why does it still carry a lot of weight?
Yeah, I think there's potentially some variant by industry as well. I think some job fields it's very important, and I think there's others that it may not be as important. For example, if I'm going to go be a psychologist or a doctor or something of that nature, I'll probably have to have an advanced degree. If I'm a developer writing code, it's probably not as important as how good I am at writing code. And I think running the business, the business principle wise, it's somewhere in the middle of those two.
So what is the substitute for gaining an advanced degree? If you're not going to go back to school and get an advanced degree, what's a substitute?
Well, you can get a certificate. You can do some form of formal education, not necessarily a degree, but a certificate program, something of that nature, some executive education.
Right.
I've been debating doing like a Agile Scrum certification or something online just to have it on resume. Just because I can't give up the time to go do an MBA at this point.
I think that's a smart thing to do. Somebody needs to mute their phone. Okay. Mitchell, what's your degree?
My degree, it's a business degree in MIS. It's a bachelor's.
Okay. Have you considered getting a master's?
I have, and I actually started twice. Didn't get very far because of work and family commitments.
Right.
And now my GMAT is expired, so I'd have to go start over.
Right. What do you think? How old are you, Mitchell?
I'm 40 almost.
What do you think? What's the consensus? John, should he go and get a advanced degree at 40?
I think it just depends on what he wants and what's the gap between where he is and what he wants.
What do you want, Mitchell?
I'd like to get into a senior executive role in operations management.
And it probably makes sense.
Oren?
I would agree with John on that. I think you're wanting to make a pretty major shift, like we had talked about earlier, and I think it's going to give credibility.
Yeah, Roger, what do you think?
Yeah, it can't hurt. It can't hurt. speaking from my own experience, again, when I made a drastic shift, and I did it, while I was getting ready for that shift, I finished my MBA. So it did give me credibility, as Oren said.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think so.
Yeah. The other thing is, especially MBAs, the networking that goes along with them. I've seen that just make.
Yeah. I do think that in a competitive environment, you have resume to resume. This guy has a master's. This guy doesn't. I'm going to give weight to that, significant weight to that.
In hunting for a job right now, I see it in the preferred section on 90% of what I'm looking at.
Yeah. Yeah, what's amazing, I'm interviewing right now in Panama City, Panama, for some staff down here for me. And I see so many advanced degrees. And when you dig into it, the degree only took 1 year to get a master's or whatever. So there's all kinds of master's programs around the world that are a lot shorter than what we have in the US.
Mm-hmm.
I don't give it as very much weight to them, but there's a lot of people with extra initials after their name. All right. So something to think about, Mitchell, for you especially, okay?
Got it.
I really do think that would be good for your career, sir. Okay, developing a plan for online education. I think here's my answer to this is that you can go and do online education these days. And why is it more applicable than ever before?
Because you can't go there physically.
Yeah, in this COVID-19 environment, right? This is the whole world has changed, and I think that you're going to find online education will be much, much more accepted these days.
And affordable.
And more affordable. Yeah, go ahead.
And I'd actually add available.
Available.
Having a little bit of insight into higher ed right now, a lot of the smaller universities are not going to survive this unless they go digital.
Yeah, they're really not. You're right.
Well, the big ones aren't going to survive either unless they go digital.
Unless they've got an endowment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so really you should look at that and get some online continuing education. We're talking about better understanding the business. What is your industry focus? Let's just go around and say, Roger, what about you? Industry focus. Yours is?
Medical device.
Okay, Mitchell.
Financial services solutions.
Oren.
Technology and product development.
John.
It's mainly sales.
Sales. Actually, your industry, you may not have an industry focus anymore. I mean, you're primarily focused on coaching salespeople or sales executives?
I worked for a software company, but my value was in managing and coaching.
Right. Mm-hmm. What about a functional focus? You have a functional focus. What's your functional focus? Oren, functional focus.
Oof, that's a hard one.
That is for you.
For me, it's really hard right now. I debate it daily. So.
Yeah, and until you figure it out, it's I think it's going to hurt your career. I think I would really figure that out. Mitchell, industry focus.
Functional. Yeah, functional focus is I manage a professional services consulting team.
I know what you do, but is that long-term? Professional services?
No, I mean, my long term is operations management at a larger scale.
Okay.
That's my desire.
Operations management. Good. So you should be the category killer for operations management. You should get into it, stay in it for 20 years, 25 years. Just do role after role after role in operations, and you will be successful getting into the C-suite. Roger? Functional.
Sales, and for the last 10 years, it's been sales. Part of that, it was a mix of sales and marketing.
But I think you want to get into GM, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you want to make that shift just as soon as you can, because you're getting branded. Every year that you stay in sales and marketing, you're just branded that much deeper in sales and marketing. Make sense?
Yep.
So try to really pick an industry focus and a functional focus. Very useful. Here is the most important slide. I really want to get to this and spend the most time on this today, because I think this is the key to this whole section. Gaining mentors in the industry to improve your business acumen. And so what is a business mentor? What is a business mentor?
The way I look at it, it's someone who's got the experience to teach someone what they had to learn that you can't read in a book to be successful at the job.
Okay, good. And all these definitions are going to be right. So just try another one. What's a business mentor? Roger?
I think
Go ahead, Ari.
I was going to say somebody that you trust enough to have an open, honest conversation about yourself, what you're lacking, and what you want to work on.
In the business environment, yes.
Yeah.
Mitchell.
Yeah, I mean, so I would echo what Oren said. Somebody that, when I think of that, somebody that I trust, but somebody that can, been there, done that. They can easily point out my blind spots. So if I bring up a situation to them, they can say, oh, you need to go handle that differently, or it looks like you don't have knowledge or capability in this area. Let's talk about that, just to kind of bring you along.
Right. Good.
So, do you feel like it needs to be in same industry?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think that it depends upon what you're trying to accomplish. If you're trying to break out of the industry that you're in to another industry, I think that it should be in the industry you're trying to break into. Okay. Right? Roger, what do you think?
Yeah, everyone said someone that you can trust, which I think by definition implies that someone that you have some relationship with. I don't think you can approach them from a cold calling standpoint. Maybe somebody that you know, but you don't necessarily have a relationship with. So that, I think is a prerequisite that you know them and then can approach them.
Right. Yeah, I'd like to explore that just a little bit, and I'm not going to disagree with you, Roger, but I'm just going to push back a little bit to say that's one kind of mentor, the kind that is known to you and you're known to them. But I would say there's also a different kind of business mentor, and that is somebody that you're going to school on, that you're observing, that you're able to carefully watch, even if they don't know that you're watching them, and that you're mentoring with them, if you will. Try that on for size, and I'm just pressure test this. What do you think about that? Do you agree or disagree? In other words, John Z here could be mentoring me in sales as I'm watching him. If he is head of sales of this organization that I'm working for. And John leads sales. And I'm just going to school on him. I'm watching him, how he does it, what he does, what he says. I have this relationship that I'm close enough because we're colleagues and I'm watching him all the time work, but he doesn't know that I'm actually mentoring with him. What do you think? Can I learn from John?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a unestablished or informal, not informal. What would be the word you would use for that?
Yeah, I think informal makes sense.
In informal mentoring?
Yeah.
And then formal mentoring is where you've asked, right? Would you be my mentor? Would you mentor me? Okay. Next question. Let me share the question with you right here. So what has been your experience of being mentored? What is your experience of being mentored? Let's just go around. John, you've been mentored? Yeah.
Yeah, I had probably 3 different mentors in my career. Yep.
Do you have one now?
Well, you're one of my informal mentors.
Ah. Okay. What's your experience so far about being informally mentored by me?
I'm learning quite a bit. Yeah.
How could you learn more?
I can learn more by being more specific in what I ask you about being mentored on.
Yeah, or you could actually have a formal conversation and say, hey, Daniel, I would like you to mentor me. Right? And we'll get to that in a second, how to do that. Oren, what about you? Have you had a mentor or mentor?
I have, and that was a long time ago that I had a couple of them. Definitely something I'm missing, and I reached out last week to a individual in the CTO office of a major company and asked them to do that. And so we're working through the cadence right now.
Nice. Good work. Mitchell, what about you? Have you had a mentor?
I have. I've had a couple of them. I've got one now.
Good. Good, good.
I'd say I've got 2 now. I'm in coaching with you, and then I've got one in my company.
Yeah, good point. A coach is a paid mentor. I believe that one of the hats a coach wears is that of mentor. Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, I've got one mentor internally, and I've got another external mentor that I was actually thinking about this morning, about just calling him for some advice, not actually saying, would you mind mentoring me? But maybe I need to make that into a more formal relationship.
Well, it certainly gives that person permission. Here, I have 7 different hats that a solid coach wears. Okay, and this is the mentoring hat. And so you see, it's holistic advocate, right? Advocating for the whole person. And I think a coach actually wears a mentoring hat. So I actually have 7 of these hats. Someday I'll show you the other 6. Okay, so how do you get a mentor? Let's talk about that. How do you get a mentor?
I think the first thing is identifying what you're looking for and looking for who's the best that you know at that, or having an introduction to somebody that's kind of the best at doing it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's good thinking. What else? How do you get a mentor? This is one of my favorite parts of coaching. So I try to have this session with every single client. Roger, I think I've had it with you.
Yep.
Yes. And we've
Yep.
talked about this.
Yep.
right? And you are very good about getting mentoring.
Yeah, so you ask, but in a disarming way. And since you've coached me on this, I've coached others as well. And asking, would you mind if from time to time I sought you out for some advice and or mentoring in the areas of such and so on?
Yeah.
Your point is that oftentimes that person's probably going to be flattered the fact that you even asked them. There's a really good chance they're going to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
Disarming it like that, you don't present it as some sort of obligation or time consuming project that they have to undertake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go to school on this, because I've been using this technique now for 30 years. I try to have every single client go out and get multiple mentors. Mitchell, we haven't talked about this yet, but we're having this conversation now, okay?
All right.
All right, multiple mentors. I like 3 for every executive. 3. I'd like your boss to be 1, if your boss is any good. So I'd like you to intentionally ask your boss, hey, would you be willing to mentor me from time to time? And then your job is to call it out when it is a mentoring session, if you will, by saying, hey, Mitchell, I'd like a little mentoring from you. Can we set something up for a mentoring session? And you'll say, sure, because I'm not a big burden, because I'm not going to be trying to get on your calendar once a month or twice a month, right? So I like boss. I like somebody higher than the boss in the organization that you're in. And then I like the third person to be outside of the organization completely. So it could be like in Abbott, but not in your division. Or it could be somebody, for you, Roger, somebody totally outside of Abbott. But what should be an industry expert in your industry lane. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Now, John, if you came to me and said, Daniel, would you be my mentor? I would say, yeah, sure. I'll give me your credit card and I'll send you an invoice, right? Because it's like, okay, this is going to be a lot of work. But if John says this, watch, John, I really admire your sales and marketing expertise. I was wondering if I could mentor with you from time to time, just a little bit on how you run a sales and marketing function, because I'd like to get better at that. Could I access you once in a while for that? See,
Daniel.
He's not going to send me a bill for that. But if I say, John, would you be my mentor in sales? He would say, yeah, this is what I do for a living, and cha-ching, it's $500 a session. Right? So the point is that if you come across as you're going to be a burden to this person, they're going to hesitate. And what you want to do is get beyond hesitation. So for the last 30 years, I've been using this technique. Never, ever, ever has anyone been turned down. Never. So it's always worked. So this is like a fail-safe way, Oren, that you could get yourself 3 mentors in the next week.
Yeah.
You just go to somebody that you think has what you want. Like, for example, who is the best network person on the planet that you know of? Think of that person, go to them and say, hey, you're really well networked, and I'm currently looking for a new executive role, and I need to network a little bit. And I would just like to network with you a little bit from time to time mentor with you a little bit from time to time on networking. Would you be willing to do that? Well, it's their area of expertise. They know they're really good at it. And now you're connecting with the best networked guy you know. and they're mentoring you on their core area of expertise. Very powerful technique. Just as long as you're communicating a light footprint, right? Okay, so this is why I put such heavy emphasis on mentoring. Because when we're talking about learning how to run the business better business acumen, better running of the business, core competency in executive execution, the main way that you guys get better at that is not through getting an MBA or through some type of advanced degree or continuing education or training programs. I think the single best way is through mentoring, because it's very targeted and very specific. But it's up to you, the mentee, to draw out from your mentor all that brilliance. And so you have to set the stage, make sure you're prepared in advance, bring an agenda to the meeting, and knock it through. Otherwise, it's going to be a trip down memory lane. And John's going to say, Daniel, would you mention me? I say, yes. He says, well, let me get together with you next week. And we get together, and he says, well, Daniel, man, how'd you get to be such a great coach? And then I'm just going off in this direction and that direction and not really providing any value for John, but I'm down memory lane. Well, I started out, John, and I just got lucky because I met this guy, John Padgett, and he took me under his wing. That's not going to do you any good. But Daniel, specifically in developing coaching practice, what are the top 3 or to 5 key things I should do to grow a practice? What's your opinion? So you got to really nail your mentor down, make them work. Ask them questions, be prepared with great questions that are going to challenge them and cause them to think. And then you have a number of those, right? It's not just 1 or 2, but your half hour to 1 hour mentoring session has maybe a dozen or 15 or 20 questions that you prepared in advance. And maybe you're asking lots of different questions, all getting at the same angle, right?
So Daniel, I love the feedback, but how do you evaluate the light footprint?
Yeah, so I think you can make a heavier footprint as the relationship develops, because what you'll find is if your target market are the senior people, the been there, done it people, then what happens psychologically as somebody gets older is they want to leave a legacy. It becomes actually a passion for most executives, most really accomplished executives in their late 50s and 60s. Is all about giving back. They're thinking about legacy either consciously or unconsciously. So that light footprint of, hey, let's maybe once every 2 months or 3 months, we can have a call, to it becomes monthly, to even twice a month. So I think that the quality of the relation, as you build a relationship with this mentor, then the door becomes wider and wider open. Roger, is that your experience from your mentoring?
It is. What I have experienced and what I've observed of those that I coach, my direct reports, is that, the mentee owns the process.
Yes.
And you can get as much or as little as you want out of it. Depends what you put into it. So just having a mentor doesn't mean much if you're not engaging regularly and as the mentee driving those engagements.
Yeah. and the quality of the meeting. I can't emphasize enough that it has to be the mentor has to feel like they've worked. If they feel like they've worked, instead of having just a polite kind of touch base conversation, then they're going to feel like they're accomplishing something. And if they're the right kind of mentor, that's what they want to do. They want to feel like they're accomplishing something in you. So it's very much like coaching. Let me tell you about, thanks for the advice from last time. I took your advice. I did A, B, and C. GEF worked, HIJ worked. Now today, what I'd like to talk to you about is X, Y, and Z. Now X, I got a question about X. When you do this and this and this, what do you recommend? And it's that kind of conversation. It's not a laid back conversation of just, hey, how you been? What's going on? Good. Let's catch up. No, it's not that informal. That is meaningless to somebody who is thinking that they're trying to leave a legacy and they're trying to mentor you. Right? That is not mentoring. That is just a friendship. Right? So a friendship is a different kind of relationship. All right. So last slide, but I really encourage everyone, please go out and get multiple mentors, informal as well as formal, 3 formal and a whole bunch of informals. Just go to school on the best of the best. So developing this strength, what are the following suggestions of this chapter do you want to try? So for homework, go through this list and see what things do you want to try? We just came up with a couple of books there, but those are, just random books, nothing profound. But just, gaining a mentor in areas of weakness. If I could leave you on one thing and knew that you were going to do it, that would be the one that I would say to go do. Okay? Very good. Everyone, good class as usual. Last one. Next Thursday, May 28th, solving problems. And thank you for being faithful and staying with this, Roger and Oren, Mitchell, John. You guys are the faithful ones. You have that stick-to-itness, mark of a top executive.
Thank you, Daniel.
Hey, thank you very much for all your great participation, your great work. We will see you next week.
All right. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Ciao.